Universities have achieved a peculiar fluency in moral self-description, equity, inclusion, belonging, universal design, justice. These terms circulate with remarkable confidence. Detached from enforceable commitments and insulated from empirical verification. They appear most often where they are least likely to be operationalized. Mission statements, branding copy, strategic plans, and syllabi that function less as pedagogical documents than as prophylactic legal instruments. The institution narrates itself as ethically progressive while reserving the right to treat its own infrastructure as ethically neutral. Neutrality is a myth. Design is never innocent. Structure always decides. Enrollment marks the moment at which abstraction hardens into architecture. Values become interfaces. Commitments become platforms. Inclusion becomes a timetable, a file format, a learning management system, a surveillance protocol. At this stage, the relevant question is no longer what the university professes, but which bodies, sensory thresholds, cognitive styles, and temporal realities its systems silently presume. Captioning disabled by default. Audio engineered without regard for auditory processing. Screen readers colliding with decorative incoherence. Textbooks misaligned with lectures and examinations. Courses advertised as asynchronous, quietly reintroducing compulsory synchrony, stripped of captioning flexibility or acknowledgement. Scheduling schemas presuming a student who is economically idle, physiologically durable, neurologically normative, chronically available, and functionally immune to fatigue. The student does not exist. The system persists anyway. This is not an oversight. What's typically defended under the rubric of rigor is, in practice, tolerance for structure, not conceptual difficulty, not interpretive demand, not epistemic death, tolerance. Rigor functions as a laundering mechanism, translating exclusion into virtue by framing structural endurance as merit. If you can survive the format, you are qualified. If you cannot, the system produces documentation explaining that the outcome is fair. Rigor selects bodies. Rigor selects schedules. Rigor selects a nervous system. Rigor pretends otherwise. Universal design for learning exists precisely to interrupt this filtration logic. Not as ideology, not as indulgence, not as accommodation theater, but as a baseline in educational ethics. Multiple modes of engagement, multiple representational pathways, multiple mechanisms for demonstrating understanding. These principles are neither radical nor novel. They were introduced early, taught thoroughly, and then abandoned once students reached an age at which nonconformity could be reinterpreted as personal failure. Remove accessibility. Barrier becomes the assessment. The structure becomes the lesson. At this point, the course ceases to teach content and begins to teach compliance, obedience to format, deference to interface, submission to architecture. Difficulty is simulated not through intellectual demand, but through environmental hostility. This is not rigor. This is bureaucratic cosplay, the performance of seriousness achieved by making participation itself punitive. This is not education. This is endurance testing. Nowhere is this dynamic more transparent than mandatory undergraduate foreign language requirements? Two academic terms do not produce fluency. They do not produce functional literacy. They do not produce interpretive competence, translational capacity, or cultural depth. What they produce is symbolic exposure, a credential whose primary function is to signify endurance rather than capability. No fluency, no literacy, no usable outcome. The result is the academic equivalent of a souvenir magnet. A wish-you-were-here postcard, a decorative artifact that announces participation without conferring capacity. I spent 2 terms in a language course and acquired a vague ability to perform scripted interactions that bear little resemblance to contemporary linguistic reality. Symbolic competence. Decorative knowledge. Tuition-funded nostalgia. Cultural formation, meanwhile, is already addressed elsewhere in the curriculum, and addressed with greater honesty, complexity, and intellectual seriousness. Through history, anthropology, sociology, literature, philosophy, and cultural studies. Introductory language courses at this level do not perform cultural education. They perform grammatical drill, rote memorization, and scripted conversational theater. This is not global citizenship. The question, therefore, becomes unavoidable. Why does the requirement exist? The first answer is policy inertia, not ancient tradition, not medieval legacy, modern bureaucratic entrenchment. Once inscribed into policy, a requirement ceases to require justification. Committees inherit it, departments stabilize around it, budgets begin to depend on it. Structure acquires the authority of inevitability. Normal is powerful. Normal resists explanation. Normal defends itself. The system does not announce exclusion, it announces non-compliance. This distinction preserves institutional self-regard while achieving the same result. No ban, no rejection, just a requirement. The third answer is economics. Required courses guarantee enrollment. Guaranteed enrollment stabilizes departmental budgets. Predictable bodies produce predictable spreadsheets. Educational value becomes subordinate to structural reliability. This isn't villainy, it's administrative rationality. Systems do not require malice to generate harm. Continuity is sufficient. There is no conspiracy. No intent. Just momentum. The disability dimension renders the entire arrangement impossible to ignore. When accessibility is treated as an exception rather than a design principle, disability is reframed as inconvenience. Students are expected to adapt to the structure. The structure is never expected to adapt to the population it claims to serve. Inclusion becomes assimilation. Accommodation becomes paperwork. This course is accessible becomes a sentence that expires quietly inside a document that nobody actually reads. Access is delayed. Damage is complete. Documents have been filed. sharpens the absurdities that everything these courses claim to offer already exists outside the university, with greater accessibility, greater flexibility, and demonstrably superior results. Captioning, adjustable pacing, multimodal input, asynchronous learning that is genuinely asynchronous, individualized repetition. At this level, the institution is not providing unique educational value. It's providing monetized inconvenience dressed in the language of tradition. This is not an argument against language learning. Language learning is transformative when it's voluntary, well-designed, and accessible. This is an argument against compulsory, structurally exclusionary requirements that function less as education than as filtration mechanisms. Learning matters. Sorting does not. Do not confuse them. Universities frequently assert that they value access, but access is not a slogan. It's architecture, and architecture does not lie. If a system produces barriers first and accommodations later, exclusion is not accidental. It's procedural. And if no one can articulate in operational, outcome-oriented language why a requirement exists, who it meaningfully serves, and what it reliably produces, then the burden of proof no longer belongs to the student. It belongs to the institution.